Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And this one, we're going to be going over how can you possibly not main a restoration druid in Shadowlands. And I think this is a specialization where actions speak louder than words. I mean, when you start looking at abilities like this, you start thinking this is a little bit nuts. And I mean, right now it seems like all of the attention is on the Druids and the Night Fae, specifically with Convoke the Spirits. A 2-minute cooldown, call upon the Night Fae for an eruption of energy, channeling a rapid flurry of 12, however, is now buffed up to 16 spells. So this version of it wasn't even the version of it that you're going to be able to access on Live Realms. It gets even crazier than what I just pressed there for the Restoration Druid. And it seems like they're doubling down on the Heart of the Wild affinity playstyle of the Restoration Druid. So if you're looking for a specialization that is incredibly challenging and will tax your limitations on keybinds, this specialization has access to multiple shapeshift forms, which all have access to all of their own set of abilities and kit, on top of some awesome returning abilities baseline like Cyclone, Overgrowth going to the talents from the Honor talent window, Nature's Swiftness coming back. I mean, really everything. It's got the whole shebang for Restoration Druid moving into Shadowlands, specifically when it comes to the kit. Right now, I think the biggest problem with Restoration Druid is figuring out where to go in terms of a covenant. And I know in PvP, it seems like a lot of Restoration Druids are going for Necro Lord if you really want to focus on performance. And then raid-wise, I think that Venthyr is a great option as it provides you a lot of haste. But come on. We gotta, there's no way we can pass up the Night Fae, right? I mean, Night Fae is absolutely out of this world with Convoke the Spirits. So in this video, I wanted to go over a build that I think that I could make Night Fae work in all aspects of the game, right? So that's the main consideration of this video. I do think that Restoration Druid is a specialization you should look to main because it's just flat out a lot of fun. So let's jump into it here. We're going to take a look at the Soulbind Conduits for the Night Fae. And the first one you get unlocked to your renown is Naya. And right off the bat, you get something that does help combat the fact that Convoke the Spirits is quite a long cooldown, and you don't get a lot of throughput like you may get from Kyrian or Necro Lord. You get some of that back through this passive. Grove Invigoration. Healing or dealing damage has a chance to grant you a stack of Redirected Anima. Redirected Anima increases your maximum health by 1% and your mastery by 25 for 30 seconds, and stacks overlap. When you use Convoke the Spirits, it will grant you 16 stacks of this Redirected Anima. Mastery is obviously a very powerful stat for the Restoration Druid, and this is the only covenant where you will have access to this, so it does help shore up some of the weaknesses of having downtime between your Convoke the Spirits for damage or healing. I decided to go for the Potency Conduit Conflux of Elements. While channeling Convoke the Spirits, your damage and healing are increased by 15%, so if you really want a big fat balance affinity Convoke the Spirits in Mythic Plus, this is going to do it. In my mind, I think when you try some PvP on Restoration Druid, you may feel like, what's going on? I can't handle this. Is too much damage. You need to play very specific compositions and playstyle to make Restoration Druid work at the moment in PvP with how high damage is. So my recommendation is play with things like Elemental Shamans, Shadow Priests, Warlocks, and Mages in any combination. And it will also enable you to potentially get away with running a Balance Affinity Convoke the Spirits. So you got Spell Cleave, tossing out tons of big spells, and then you're in the back line. You're suddenly a boomkin, baby, tossing out Convoke the Spirits. This thing could be really nasty and fun in that situation, and enables the situation where I think Restoration Druid is going to have to fit in the PvP meta. So not only do I think this is excellent in Mythic Plus, obviously, it may fall a little bit short in Raid, but now that it's 16 spells, maybe not. And then in PvP, in this very specific situation and composition strategy, if you avoid playing with melee DPS and play comps where the enemy team can attack you, you can stay afar at a distance and blast out a ton of damage and make this fun covenant work. And that's the main purpose of this video, is going over what's the fun part of this, should you main it, and trying to give you some advice on what to go after, because there's a ton of stuff to look at, right? Moving forward onto the secondary conduit, Finesse, you can reduce the cooldown of your Mighty Bash, Mass Entanglement, and Heart of the Wild. So if you really want to encourage that Heart of the Wild play, buff up your damage, I thought that this Finesse conduit was going to be a lot of fun to go after. And there's some legendaries that we'll look at that synergize quite effectively with it. Endurance conduit, kind of straightforward. You're just going to be getting Innate Resolve. This is Regrowth and Frenzied Regeneration. Healing on yourself is increased by 12%. You should note if you're not running Guardian Affinity that you don't get Frenzied Regeneration, so it'll only be the regrowth. But in some situations you will be running the Guardian Affinity. Potency conduits, to me, I valued this one so much so that I gave up the secondary effect here because it's basically Swiftman's healing is increased by 40% of the consumed heal over time effect. That's a really big buff to your overall single target healing, which in my mind is important in PvP where I'm a little bit more focused, but I think would work well in being a tank healer in raid for an emergency heal, or picking up a tank after you've been spending a lot of time, whether it's Feral Affinity or Balance Affinity and Mythic Plus. You got this as an emergency backup heal to get your tank. You lose out on this one because Naya's Tools Poisons is only interrupts and you don't have an interrupt, so you can't apply this effect. You could opt to go for a secondary Finesse conduit and then gain your healing spells and abilities have a chance to apply Naya's Invigorating Herbs, increasing the target's haste. This actually could be very good for a spell cleave again in PvP, or even in Mythic Plus for buffing some of your Frostmage friends in your party. So if you wanted to go for that, you could go for Tireless Pursuit, which would grant you 3 seconds after leaving cat form or trial form. You retain up to some of the movement speed just to get around a little bit easier. There's a couple cheeky things, like if you really suck at standing in fire and you die too much, you could go after Pod Tender. So when you die, you turn into a seed and then you will come back to life. So there's some nice little, if you're having some hard times, or Korain, where you're going to be getting increased healing on targets below 35% health and increased damage above 75%. That's a fat Convoke the Spirits if you're buffing your damage by 10% on that, on top of the conduit. So overall, Night Fae looks like a lot of fun, and my main concern with it was whether or not I could make it work in the entire game, right? That's the main problem with the Covenants. But I think using the strategy that I've gone over here, I could make it work. I'm actually considering switching from the Necrolord on my Druid on Live Realms just to try and make this work because it's so much fun. And then when you switch over to Feral or Balance in your off time, you get this insane Convoke the Spirits as well. Probably the most fun ability in Shadowlands. Maybe we have a vote. Vote down below. What do you think? Convoke the Spirits, is it the most fun ability in Shadowlands? Now, taking a look at the legendary powers, I think for a lot of people what was standing out at the beginning were things like the Dark Titan's Lesson. You may Life Bloom 2 targets at once, but Life Bloom's healing is now reduced by 10%. Originally, there was no reduction on this. They had to nerf it, and then put a negative element on it because having Life Bloom on 2 targets was such an intense effect and had good synergies with your talents. So this was one that it looks like a lot of fun, getting Life Bloom onto multiple targets. In PvP, this is more for purge protection, and there is a lot of purging with Shadow Priests, Shamans, and Priests in general being really strong at the moment. So this is a legendary to keep your eyes out on. And then other than that, for myself specifically, Oath of the Elder Druid. This is, I believe, the PvP legendary. Effects of Thick Hide, so the secondary effects of your affinity choice, which means you get more range. You could be casting, I don't even know what the range of that is. It's probably like 50 plus yards on your spells. That's nuts. And then when you shift into your affinity form, you gain Heart of the Wild. So if you were to shift into Boomkin form, what that would do for you with Heart of the Wild is make your Star Surge instant. Super fun build in PvP. If you play with Shadow Priests, Shamans, and Warlocks, sit in the backline, switch into Boomkin, pop out a Star Surge, go for Convoke. This thing could be a lot of fun. That's why I had my eyes on it. And then the one that everybody was really going for, I think, for single target throughput or just in general gameplay power was the Verdant Infusion. Swiftman no longer consumes the heal over time effect and extends the duration of your heal over time effects on the target by 8 seconds. So if you didn't know, Swiftman's going back to the old mechanic where it eats your hot. That's going to cost you a global cooldown to put it back up. This removes that negative effect and then it actually extends the hots on all your targets. So if you overgrowth and you had a max set of hots and then you swift mended, it would pump up all of those hots. You can see why the synergies of that with the Necrolord's Adaptive Swarm was so strong. I think that's what a lot of players have their eyes on at the moment. But me, I'm thinking Laser Turkey brain. I'm thinking I'm going to shift into Boomkin form, pop instant Star Surges, sit in the back and be a spellcaster and play with classes where if the enemy team in PvP attacks ask me, they're gonna regret it. And then I can go into Mythic Plus. I can pop out some big pow Star Surges over in Mythic Plus. I can go into Raid. I can shift out a Boomkin form. I can cast Convoke the Spirits as an emergency raid heal as well, because it's quite an effective raid heal, or just group heal in general if you use it out of Boomkin form. So I think that Night Fae can work. And even if you are targeted in PvP, you got the Vulpin form to help yourself get away. I was really having this internal battle of like, can I make Night Fae work in the game as a whole? Can I do it? Is it possible? Because I know everybody's looking at like, I want that. I have to be that. And I think I did. I think I did in this video. If you think I did, leave a comment down below. If I've sold you on Resto Druid, leave a comment down below. Leave a like on the video. Thank you very much for watching. I will have links to other videos up here as well if you want to check them out. If you're interested in looking at other classes and specializations to pick as your main for Shadowlands. But yeah, Resto Druid at the moment looks like a solid spec overall in the game, and super fun. Tons of keybinds, lots of the old vibes returned to it with a lot of the new things enhanced as well. So I definitely would recommend it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.